time to get started. We've got a really full session. In this session, there are 3 presentations. The new National Highway Institute Access Management course with Neil Spiller, who works for FHWA, restricted cross U-turn intersections with 2 engineers from Wisconsin Department of Transportation, Brian Porter and Scott Nelson, and using LiDAR data to analyze access categories and raised median safety in Utah with Grant Schultz at Brigham Young. I'll introduce them individually, but we have half hour for each presentation. Hopefully there'll be a little time for questions at the end of each presentation. I should say the first session, which is a new NHI course on access management, I joined University of Wisconsin in '93. The first NHI course I brought to Wisconsin at UW was the access management course. It was very popular, and apparently the granddad and his son were the instructors for that course. It was a really hands-on class, and I'm interested in knowing what that class is now that's been redesigned. Neil is program manager in the Office of Operations at FHWA in Washington. He has 3 specific program areas: HOV and managed lanes, localized congestion mitigation, and integrated corridor management. He's been with FHWA for over 15 years. He was a county engineer in Frederick County, Maryland, and was with a private traffic consulting firm prior to that. Neil is a graduate of the University of Maryland and a professional engineer. Neil?
Thank you. When I started at FHWA, which was about 2002, one of my first assignments was to update the course. I guess update it the first time. And we dutifully did that. And so we had a course that come about 2003 or 4, lasted for a better part of 12 to 15 years. And then came time, and that course was based on the original black and red TRB Access Management Manual. And one of the things we did at that time was to incorporate the purchase of the manual into the purchase of the course. So in other words, if you, as an agency, were to purchase this course from NHI, you would also get, for 20 seats, you would also get 20 copies of the TRB manual so that each person would have his or her own manual. We didn't do that with this time because the manual grew because of Karen's great work. It grew from an inch to 2.5 inches to an AMAG manual that was also 2 inches. So we didn't have the opportunity to do that, and we didn't want to make it cost ineffective also to do that. So that's just a little bit of a background story. We all know what access management is, why it's important. One of the things we heard from Jerry Gluck earlier this morning was the how and the why. And I said that's a particular bugaboo of mine in understanding the consequences. But because I think, somebody who's thrown into the permits and discipline of access management, is given a book and is given whatever statute they might have in his or her state, and they go off and they, design and administer permits and design driveways and intersections and streets. But I think we need to understand what the consequences are too. So if we have time, I'm going to get into that too. I have a few slides in a different presentation that talk about that. You've seen this slide. Christine put it up earlier this morning, the new definition of access management. The traditional course, the previous course, really was vehicular focused. The new course is multimodal focused. And again, we're looking at reducing the conflicts and making people understand the consequences of poor design if it were to continue, or if somebody comes in and there's a retrofit and you don't make an improvement, you, the agency, may be liable in that case too. I'm speaking, preaching to the choir here, so there's a few slides here that I'm going to run through pretty quickly, but obviously this is a presentation, incidentally, that you can take to your administration and give to them or run through it and say, this is why our agency may or may not want to, or may want to, I should say, purchase one of these two courses. We're going to tell you why there's two courses here eventually. We know what the principles are, but for a layperson who might not understand that, the principles, of course, are to limit the conflicts, separate those conflicts, and provide access to properties. Access introduces risk. Anybody who's sat through a Phil Demosthenes presentation ends up jittery and scared when they walk out, because he runs all these slides of cars crashing into each other and what poor access does, and how poor access begets crashes and problems. And the way I like to introduce it is each drop of rain is its own predictable element and can be tracked. However, when you get multiple raindrops or multiple access points, the pattern becomes chaotic, and now you have one working against the other. Public ways, let's understand this, are very, very dangerous. These numbers generally are level year after year. They don't jump up and they don't decrease, and they don't, they don't fluctuate very much. 6 million crashes a year, 37,000 fatalities in 2016. For motor vehicle crashes, the leading cause of deaths for ages, actually it was ages 11 through 24, with the exception of age 12 for some reason, but generally for teenager up to the 20s, car crashes is the #1 cause of death. 70% of Americans born today will be in, these are Phil Demosthenes type presentations to scare everybody in the room. And of course, the great majority, over 50%, are access related, not just somebody meandering down the street who runs off the edge of the road. Conflict points are unavoidable. I'm going to go through this very quickly. On the vehicle side, on the left side, you sum up that there are 32 possible vehicle conflict points, but when you add in pedestrians and bicycles, you double that. Examples of poor management, we've all seen them. Left picture versus the right picture. I think everybody deals with this, but we need to understand that when a new permit comes in, or a retrofit comes in, or a new property comes in, there's an opportunity to fix that, and that's really what we're talking about doing. These are the consequences: increasing delays. So there's consequences in operations, there's consequences in safety, there's consequences for the driver, and there's economic consequences as well. Again, I'm preaching to the choir, so I'm going through some of these very, very quick. Here's why it gets to be important. Is it the motorist, is it the landowner, or is it the practitioner, the agency, that may be liable? Of course, the answer is any and all of the above might be found liable in some of these tort cases. Landowners, for example, are going to say, I want that second entrance. I want, don't give me that right in, right out. I want 2 entrances. I want full access, or I want to be connected to the side road and the main road. I want that entrance even if it's in the vicinity of an over vertical. So if the landowner pushes for and gets access that he or she probably doesn't deserve by design standards, that could be a problem. If we, the practitioner, allow that to happen without having some record of decision or some mediation of how that decision was reached, we might be responsible, or at least the agency would be responsible too. There are 9 research-proven safety countermeasures. This is put out under a flyer that the Office of Safety, Federal Highways, puts out, of which 6 of these 9 are access management related: roundabouts, corridors, traffic signals, medians, complete streets or road diets, and pedestrian attention. The other three are really highway, horizontal curves, rumble strips, and safety edge. So again, the importance of access management is something that we want to make sure that everybody understands. This is a message that's going to be coming out of these two courses. I'm skipping through all these slides very quickly because, as I said, I think all of you are familiar with the message. So let's get to the course. As I said, the course is obviously based on, on the Access Management Manual 2014 and the AMAG Guide 2016. It's based on it, obviously, but it is different in the previous course in that, as I said earlier, the previous course, everybody got a copy of it as part and parcel of the fee or the charge for that course. Not the case here. We certainly encourage every agency to have these copies, and we certainly encourage every practitioner to have these at his or her desk, but it's not a mandate that we kept through when we redid the course recently. The course is produced by National Highway Institute. National Highway Institute is an arm of, it's the education arm of Federal Highways in the same way that Turner Fairbank is the research arm of Federal Highways. NHI began in the 70s teaching the most basic highway design principles and courses. They started with concrete and asphalt highway management, guardrail design, these sorts of things. Federal Aid 101, how do we understand how do you get federal aid? But there are now 18 disciplines that NHI teaches, and over those 18 disciplines, I think it's 300 something courses that somebody can register. NHI, National Highway Institute, operates out of Arlington, Virginia, and provides these courses. The old course, as I said, was based on the black and red manual. It was a technical course. It was a 3-day course. It was primarily lecture-based because at the time, back in 2003 and 4, when the TRB manual was produced and the access management course was updated, that was the teaching principle and the teaching method, the rote method from NHI. That has since developed into a lessons learned and objectives. So now the new course is either 2 or 3 days, because there's actually 2 courses. And it is very much hands-on in that it's classroom style, and from time to time people will be broken up to work on actual design elements. So you'll actually go through, just like Karen showed earlier before lunch, the calculations that go into left turn bay, decision site distance, right turn exit speeds. You'll go through these designs. So it really is written for the practitioner more so than the layperson. It's a wider audience. The old course was designated at access management practitioners, but the new course is also, the new courses are designated to the planners and designers. There's also a section in there about legal aspects, public involvement, and intergovernmental coordination. Here's where it gets interesting. There's a 2-day course, which is a little bit higher level. Either course has continuing education units. The 2-day course is a little more qualitative. The audience can be non-technical. It could be the administrators and also branching out to the planners and others who are in your agency. But it's everyone who might touch upon some aspect of access management. 3-day course is a little bit deeper dive, a little bit higher continuing education units. There's practical applications, and it really is for the designers and the engineers who are going to work from day to day in doing the permitting. It's based on this map on the right, which is used 3 or 4 times in a progressive manner through the course. The first time just looking at distances between driveways, the second time looking at speeds and accident rates along that system. So each consecutive classroom experience builds upon the previous one. It also involves, and I believe they got permission to use Google Earth, because I know that when we went through the pilot course, we had these maps laid out in front of us, but half the people in the room who are more computer savvy than the rest of us had already Googled this area and were looking at it, and they could do the flyby, and they could come up with distances that Google could measure, and they were actually using that to be interactive. And I think that the NHI people allowed for that to happen. So you will be able to use, you can use a Google interface in actually looking at this subject case study. This is a little bit different view. That's a paper view, if you will, of the handout that everybody would get, or at least each of the 4 or 5 groups would get. I said that the additional benefits of the course are continuing education units. You also get the desk resource. There's a participant handbook, which you can go back and as you write notes in, and any course that you take, you can make those notes. I'm running a little bit out of time here, but these are some of the new topics: performance measurement, auxiliary lanes, interchange areas, and again, the class study focusing on a corridor area management plan. What does the host do? The host agency is responsible to provide the facility, provide the equipment, coordinate the logistics. They basically are going to use their own DOT training room or their own DOT room. You're going to set it up classroom style, not lecture style. They're going to coordinate with the training instructors. There's 2 of them. They're going to provide communication with NHI, and of course they're going to pay the course fees per participant. I think it's a minimum of 20 participants before they will be able to sign up for the course. What does NHI do at their end? They collect the payment, they list the training session, they provide a session of registrants who are enrolled, they promote it, they ship all the materials that need to be shipped there, they provide best practices guidelines for training sessions, and it is written again in a learning and objective module manner. And if you're not familiar with that, what it is the first slide comes up in each module and says this is what you're going to learn. Then you have 3 or 4 slides of learning it. Then you have a slide at the end that is a little bit of a classroom test that says what did we learn, just to make sure that it's sunk in. That's the method that they use. Who can host? States, LTAPs, MPOs, cities, whomever. How do you get it? You go to NHI Online. You go to the course description. It's 133078A is the 3-day course, and 133078 by itself is the 2-day course.
What is the cost per participant? I couldn't read that.
It wasn't up there. But I will tell you, because I know this came out. I have with me course descriptions for each of them, the 2-day and the 3-day, and I'll have these on a table up here. The cost is, for the 2-day, minimum of 20 people, $675 per participant. For the 3-day, $825 per participant, minimum of 20 participants. So you're looking at a cost to your agency in the vicinity of $13,000 to $16,000, $15,000, something like that. So, yeah, I was going to flip to a different PowerPoint presentation to show you some other statistics of consequences of poor access, but I don't think we need to do that. I think we hear about that enough in some of the other stuff. So I will sit here and answer any questions then that you may have particular about the course. And it is available now. It's online, NHI. You can go register on behalf of your agency. And as I said before, I have 2-day and 3-day course descriptions here that you're welcome to take with you. Fire away.
Okay, so okay, you have 2 instructors.
Yes.
And did they both come to the?
They're both certified by NHI. You have to be NHI certified in teaching the NHI method.
I'm just saying that.
But I say that in
They come to one location.
They come to one location, absolutely. So let's say Wisconsin DOT wants to have, they would arrange for a site. It would be held at one of their region's training centers, or in their department facilities, 20 to 30 people, minimum of 20. The 2 instructors are sent. All of the materials is sent forward. The participant notebooks. The instructors have a different instructor notebook, which leads them through it, obviously. And the classroom examples are, the case studies, et cetera. All of that is sent forward. It's really just pay the fee and arrange for a site And that's it. It's a sign-up thing. You sign up online. It's a very popular course, incidentally. It's probably taught anywhere from 8 to 10, maybe 12 times a year. I know that Dane Ismart is in there. Chris Huffman is one of the teachers. Used to be Walter, and that group. Who else taught with Walter? I don't know. But anyway, any other questions about the course, how to get it, where to get it? And if you have any problems getting it, obviously contact me, FHWA, at headquarters in Washington, D.C., Neil Spiller.
Thank you.
Thank you.